Coming up in 2 minutes is a Fifth Tuesday bonus episode of the Good Grief, Good God Show, hosted by Grammy nominee and Emmy award-winning hit songwriter of 15 top 10 songs, including 9 number ones, Brad Warren of the Warren Brothers. I'm producer Matt Pivito. Join Brad monthly on the first and third Tuesdays on your favorite audio platform or in video on YouTube for raw, honest conversations about surviving things that suck. For today's episode, Brad welcomes author, singer, and hit songwriter of songs responsible for over 1 billion Spotify airplays, including Uncle Kracker's Smile, JT Harding. So a little bit about JT. After graduating from high school in Detroit, he moved to Hollywood, where he made his first demo recording with money he won off of the Rock and Roll Jeopardy show on VH1. While in Hollywood, JT focused on writing and traveling the world as the personal assistant to Linkin Park, one of the biggest bands of the 21st century. JT's success in Hollywood eventually led him to a publishing deal and moved to Nashville. JT's catalog of songs includes Blake Shelton's Sangria, Kenny Chesney's Somewhere With You, and Dierks Bentley, Different for the Girls, plus dozens of others. You're about to discover that JT has a larger-than-life personality, as chronicled in his memoir, Party Like a Rock Star, a life story that includes him discovering his biological father was not only a famous DJ while he was living in Hollywood, but also a famous comedian, best known for his role in the sitcom Cheers, Jay Thomas. Check the description to learn more about today's guest, Brad, and the show, including clickable links to connect on social media and to visit goodgriefgoodgodshow.com. On the behalf of Brad's wife, Michelle, segment producer, and guest booker, Lisa Bolt, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you too will find the good in grief. The Good Grief, Good God Show is brought to you in loving memory of Sage Michael Warren.
It's like I'm in the movie Let It Be again. It's not working. Do you know when the Beatles made their first records at EMI, all of the engineers wore lab coats because they were like, this is science. Like recording is science. So they have ties and suits on and they're in lab coats. They're like, press record. Welcome to the Death of a Family Member podcast where you were just cracking up.
There's
laughing.
This is not a non-funny thing. Like we
Hey, Lisa, can you spray me with a little bottle so it looks like I'm crying at appropriate moments?
Yeah. That would be good if you actually cried and be like, man, JT is quite an actor. Yeah. They would never believe you actually were, you know. All right, you girls gonna keep talking back there?
Oh, we starting?
Hey, is there a ticker where I see how much time it is? That little thing on the floor. Not that it matters. It's probably something I should ignore, but I like to.
Oh, no, dude. I played at Opryland recently, and there was a countdown clock. It was incredible. So I would look up at it, and I was like, oh, the story's getting a little long. I don't want someone to skip a song.
Wait. You played at Opryland.
And they had a countdown clock that we could see because we could only play for an hour. So it was fun. So I would just be singing.
Each song you had like 6 minutes. Get this shit over with.
No.
That'd be funny.
Rivers is up there with a hockey stick hitting it.
Lisa and I were just discussing today. We wouldn't worry about what people thought about us nearly as much if we realized how little they did. You know what I mean? And the truth is, people want to hear their own songs when you write them. I mean, I'm kind of narcissistic when it comes to like, I want to listen to 2 of your songs. I don't want to listen to 4, know? And I definitely don't want to listen to 5. I was thinking about the first time we ever wrote. I don't know if you remember that. How long? I mean, it's 20 years.
Maybe 15 or so. 2000. Was Smile already out? That came out in 2000?
No, it was before Smile. It wasn't out. No, yeah. This is.
It was a long time ago.
You were a kid. Like I was a kid, and I thought you were young. So I don't know how much older I am than you, but it was. You
is my hair dye dripping? Yeah.
I thought you were Rudy Giuliani for a second. No, you Chris Farron hooked us up. We were at Combustion, and you were JTX. You were still in JTX.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, now I'm JT with a lot of X's. Yeah.
You're JT.
Do I need to lean up to this? I don't.
No, you don't. I think it's good. Check me out.
Don't adjust your computers. I'm really dressed like this. Yeah.
It's kind of tame for you, to be honest. I was kind of hoping for the leopard print outfit. How many crazy suits do you have?
I'll probably have 4 or 5. I need a few more. A lot of people have seen them around Nashville. Yeah. I like my money where I can see it, hanging in my closet.
Right. It is funny. Social media is giving everybody. I've seen that. I saw that code on your TikTok already.
Yeah, exactly.
You start repeating your outfits.
Yes.
Used to be you could do a whole tour and have 3 outfits, and, unless somebody had an instant camera, you weren't really getting called out on that.
You and your brother have to start making up new jokes because we're like, oh, we saw that one already.
I have a thing about like there's certain go-tos in the show, but I have a thing about leaving room for like the joke that just appears.
Absolutely.
The really funny nights, they're not every night, but the really funny nights in the songwriters thing are the night that you just get on a tangent and go there. But when everything's in the can and you just tell some of the stories they want to hear, you got to have the same ones. We all do that. But I like leaving room for a brand new story, a person that's like on their phone texting while you're playing, and it's just like, let's go off on them.
Absolutely.
Right now. Or when you guys entire night about them.
Yeah, totally. Or when you guys were playing a song and someone in the audience was like, I saw JT tearing up in that. He thinks he's so funny. And I said, I am tearing up. I'm so sad I didn't write that song. Stuff like that. Yeah.
There's a good way to go off the cuff. It's just I don't want to be too in it, but therefore, so it's like, oh, tell that one joke again. I'm like, no, that joke was pertinent to the funny one I'm thinking of is we play If You're Reading This. It's a soldier song about it. You know, we told the story. It's a letter home it's very serious. And Brett always says anyone that was in the military, raise your hand. And we were at the Bluebird. Nobody raised their hand. And Brett says, okay, does anyone have a son or a daughter or parent that was in the military?
Like my father was.
Yeah, right. Nobody. Nothing.
Whoa.
Brett said, does anyone have a relative or a spouse that was in the military? Nobody. And I just finally leaned up to the mic and said, has anyone here seen Saving Private Ryan? And I was like off the cuff and they're like, tell that every night. I'm like,
you can't because everyone's going to raise their hand.
It's very rare. And then I called him a bunch of commies and and berated them the rest of the show about no one having been in the military.
That joke will be huge. Just do a whole songwriter tour of Russia. Is anyone here in the American Army? Yeah. Okay. Is this thing on?
So the book, man. How about like?
Oh yes,
we'll
yes.
Get into the book.
Which one of these 7 cameras is on? Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into the book. What's in there because it's like your story, whatever. But like writing, it's inspiring. By the way, writing a book, it's great. The book is great. Your story's freaking crazy. If anyone hasn't bought the book, buy the book, read it, or just actually show up to see JT. Throw him some puppy dog eyes. He'll give you a free one.
Yeah, that's true.
But like writing the book, is it what made you do that?
Great question. I played a songwriter show here like you do. A lot of people know there's songwriter shows in Nashville all over. And a woman that I had never met before, I personally had never even heard of her, named Dana Perino was in the audience. And she said, I saw this guy, JT, he should write a book. Now, as you know, and I'm finding out everyone knows, she's on television and my phone just started ringing.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of her and you become friends. So that's
exactly.
That's probably perfect.
She's very nice. And she really, came through. She said, I know I met this guy, JT, and he should write a book. And so she told everyone about it. And I got a few offers and I wrote the book. And it was pretty amazing because it was during COVID and it really gave me something to do. And I just sat down and started, writing my life story. I was adopted. I didn't know anyone in the music business is really why I wrote it. And I became a hit songwriter. I just loved watching MTV. I would sneak in to see Purple Rain. I moved out to Los Angeles, lost record deals, lost writing deals. It was just like, no, until someone finally said yes, kind of like how you got married. And, and so that's really why I wrote the book. But then writing the book, things about my family came out that were things that maybe I hadn't talked about a ton. I've always talked about being adopted, but then I met my biological parents, and I'm not one of those guys that says read the book if you want to know the story. I've never met a microphone.
Yeah, we're telling the whole story.
I've never met a microphone I didn't like. Yeah. And then I had a brother that passed away.
Your dad, so just for a second before you get by that, we'll obviously talk, but your dad was Jay Thomas, and people don't necessarily know the name Jay Thomas, but they would know his face.
Yeah, definitely. So I was adopted. I was born here. My birth certificate is an apology.
You were born here?
I was born in Vanderbilt.
Really?
Yes.
I thought you were from Michigan.
No, we moved there.
Jay was here. Okay.
My dad. So this gets a little confusing. So I was adopted at birth. I was always curious because my birth certificate is an apology from a condom company. It's framed next to my Sangria Platinum album. Yeah, gives you a chill, doesn't it? No. So I was adopted at birth by the Hardings. So I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. My dad was a coach at Vanderbilt. He scored a touchdown in the Rose Bowl.
Coach what at Vanderbilt?
Football.
Head coach?
Yeah. I don't know if he was the head coach, but he's one of them. Yeah. Wow, played for the Rams for a minute.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was adopted and then we moved to Michigan. So, and then when I was like I had already moved out to LA, and then to go back to your story, when I was 21 or 22, my biological mother had been looking for me. And then we started speaking on the phone. And then she told me who my real dad is. I don't even know how to explain
biological father.
Yeah, biological. And you know the story, but I'll tell to anyone that, obviously a lot of people don't know me. She said, just so you know, your real father is not like other people. And that makes you, I mean, what does that make you think? He's in jail or maybe caused some trouble.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, no, he's an actor. He's on the show. And I could just tell by the tone of her voice, she was not kidding. She said, he's an actor. He was on the show Cheers. And I had like 3 roommates at that time, broke, living in Hollywood. And I put the phone on my shoulder and I was like scanning the cast of Cheers, like the Terminator looking for a human.
Like Ted Danson is my father.
I said, Ted Danson's my father. We're getting lobster tonight. And she said, no, no.
I should be better looking.
Yeah. No, his name is Jay Thomas. And I thought, Jay Thomas, true story. Jay Thomas was a gigantic DJ at that time in Los Angeles, and 1 block from my apartment, I was living on the most unglamorous corner of Hollywood. The entire side of the building was Jay's face on the body of a woman, and it said, Power 106, we apologize for Jay Thomas. I mean, my head was spinning. He had come into Tower Records where I was working. I had watched him on Mork and Mindy, Cheers. He was on the cover of TV Guide at the 7-Eleven I was going to. So yeah, I mean, and then we met and we became like long lost fraternity brothers. It's such a bad movie, our story. I'm surprised Jay didn't star in the movie, you know. Mr. Holland's Opus was out at that time. I'd already seen it. Jay was in it. So
it's a lot like Tim McGraw and his dad, Doug. It really is sounding like that because Tim was like a
his
fan.
Dad has the body of a woman?
Yeah, he did actually. He had great pecs. But he had a baseball card pinned to his wall.
No, I don't
his
know
wall of Tug when he found out Tug was his dad. He was like, I don't remember exactly, for 12 or something. Wow. And was looking for Christmas gifts in his attic, snooping, and found his birth certificate. And his father said Tug McGraw. And he's like, what? And he had a baseball card stapled to his wall. And one of the baseball cards was Tug McGraw. Yeah. So this guy that he had up is like a athletic hero.
That's unbelievable. You literally can't make it up. It sounds fake. If it was in a movie, you'd say, okay, it's good. But man, if I had found my birth certificate and it said Jay Thomas, I would have scribbled it out Eddie Van Halen. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get to pick, right?
Yeah. But Jay was great. And, he has 2 sons, Jake and Sam, which I'm incredibly close with.
I met Sam.
Yeah. And then my brother, Lance, who is a Harding, who goes by his Native American name in the book, Dances with Vodka. That they just think
that was Sam.
No. And they just think Lance is incredible. He's just a wild man. So I've gotten very lucky, and it's amazing how many people write me, Facebook, Instagram, sharing their adoption stories. It's really, it's just like writing songs. You write a hit song, like if you're reading this, you start hearing from people everywhere. And so it's wild to hear all the stories.
So how do you wear that? How do you wear the adoption? Just like people talk about, abandonment issues or something like that. I don't think I would have that because when you're a baby, someone did not choose you. They chose not to be a parent, but it didn't happen to me. So I don't know. Yeah. Like I don't think I would feel abandoned. I would feel collected by the people that adopted me. Yes. The people that didn't adopt you, it wasn't because you cried too much as an infant. They had just decided they weren't going to have a child.
Exactly.
Is that how you feel about it? Or tell me this,
100%. I wouldn't trade the Hardings for anything. And I've never felt like a longing for anything or an emptiness. And literally, truly in 7th and 8th grade, I was like, David Lee Roth might be my real dad, like talking to girls. So I wouldn't trade him for anything. And people that have, adopted children have written me and said, do you think my son, when he grows up, he's going to wish he was with his real mother or father? And I always say for my own, I just say, absolutely not. There's no way. Yeah. I wouldn't trade my family for the world. So, yeah. But I got very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, look at me. My dad was like as big as like the gates of Jurassic Park, Larry Harding, loved sports, worked for ESPN. My mom was the president of Little League. I was like, an MTV junkie trapped in an episode of Sports Center. I'm spraying my hair with hairspray. I'm like, we didn't have the internet when I was a kid. So to get checkerboard pants, I would like get a pair of like white jeans from my babysitter and then like spray paint, checkerboards on them, and they always encouraged me to be myself. And for you kids listening, I didn't have Instagram. So to show off my outfits, I had to walk to the pencil sharpener twice every class, Yeah. But so imagine I'm just like rock and roll. And my parents just encouraged it. My dad would trade his Michigan State University 50-yard line tickets for me to go to a concert. So they couldn't have been more, encouraging.
It's funny because it gives a lot of credo to genetics. The genetic, you grew up in a jock family, which is so funny because you're just a total creative guy. And the genetics that were in you, the entertainer genetics,
yes,
superseded the raising of the great raising that the people that you love. But it's funny, we give ourselves too much credit for what for our children do or don't become. And some of that's like everybody has their own path. And you just, I mean, reading the book, you knew early. You knew really early. I was an MTV junkie too, except we didn't have a TV. So I had to, that's tough to be a junkie for something you can't get a hold of.
You and your brother had to act out videos,
We did our share of that.
Put the bikini on.
With the strictest father on earth that would literally whip you with a belt with shotgun bullet heads on it. Like he was strict and military and everything. We would poke out the screen and jump out our window in the middle of the night and run to our friend's house about half a mile away so that we could watch MTV. And then we would run back and climb in the window and go to bed.
That's incredible.
And then have to get up and like work in the garden all day or whatever because our dad was like a military.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was hardcore, but we wanted to watch MTV bad enough to risk life and limb.
I love it. Yeah, I hated doing chores. Yeah,
I still hate doing chores.
Yeah, me too.
What are chores? But I mean, I like to work hard, but I don't want to do chores.
Yeah.
If you work hard enough at your job, you can hire someone to do chores for you.
And, I would always say, I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to, do the chores. Of course I would have to. And my dad would say, you can do anything you want with your life. Just do it your best. So I was like, all right. But, putting a band together, playing in the Battle of Bands or all these things, it didn't seem like work. It was so fun.
And it turns out it was work.
Yeah.
It is work. It's been a long, long time since either one of us had an actual job, but I've worked harder at my career than I think I ever would have at any job. I have a quote for everyone that comes on to this, and I couldn't find the author of your quote, but it was the quote was "Greatness comes with its quirks."
Ooh,
and I don't know who wrote it, and I usually can figure that out, but I don't know where I heard it, but it's one of those.
He was so quirky, he forgot to put his name on it.
Well, or that.
Why am I leaning up to this mic?
It's that guy unknown that's always on these things. Man, he's got some great quotes.
Whoever said women, you can't live with them, you can't live without them. Give that guy a platinum album. Who wrote that?
Yeah, who wrote that?
I don't know.
It's unknown. That same guy, unknown, wrote it. No, you're a quirky guy, and it's amazing that you're. That is the beauty of the way that you operate. The way I'd never forget the first time we wrote with you. However long ago it was, it seems like it was 20 years ago. But you were young, this rock and roll kid, and JTX. We're rock and roll kids too, but we're all writing country music, and we love country music. But there's this edge. And you were standing up and performing as we were writing. Like, I hadn't written with anyone that stood up. I still haven't. I've been doing this for a long time. Never. And you were standing up performing the song. I was like, oh my God, I love this kid.
That's great. Yeah. I don't know if I do that anymore. Sometimes I do. I did. I just was like, whenever I write a song, I'm trying to imagine, can 80,000 people sing this? Exactly. I think we wrote when I had the complete honor, before I had any hits really, to go over to Afghanistan for a week to perform for the troops. And the only thing louder than the guns and bombs were my outfits.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, I remember there was a connection, like maybe you guys were writing If You're Reading This, and I had been over there. So maybe there was like a little connection like that.
I think it was before.
I think it was. There was something about that.
Chris Farron was involved somehow. Was he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
he was
my
your publisher. Right?
Yeah. So he connected us, but
he produced our records. So
yeah.
I think it was just like, hey, there's there's like
that's why he has so much gray hair and a nervous twitch.
Honestly, we gave him some, poor guy. The people that had to deal with us all should get some sort of award.
Yes,
but they do. There's like 4 or 5 of us. When somebody rock and roll comes to town, we get a call.
Oh, yeah.
They'll go right with the Warren Brothers, go right with JT or Blair Daly, and then
yes.
That's
sounds like a song title almost. When somebody rock and roll comes to town. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I miss that. 'Cause now that people just live here, everybody rock and roll lives here. So as you're writing, like I was going to ask you about COVID. That was a great time to write a book. That was really smart.
Yeah,
that was a good use of your time. So that's
the book is called Party Like a Rock Star. Remember that meme that was going around at the time?
Commercial. Look at that. That's a great looking book.
Woo, yes. And that's me on the cover in 8th grade Battle of Bands, which we did win, breaking a guitar. When I hit that guitar on the stage, my fillings rattled. I didn't know breaking a guitar was so hard. Kiss made it look so easy.
Yeah, they broke them a little bit first.
Well, no one told me that.
Yeah.
I didn't have the internet.
Are you wearing leggings?
I'm wearing leg warmers, ripped shirts, it's so many bandanas. It's like, a bomb went off in a cowboy town. As you can tell, I hate attention. But it was fantastic. There was a little meme going around that said, during a plague, Shakespeare wrote his best 20 sonnets. Like I would see that meme going around and it really frustrated me. I was like, it's COVID. We're all locked down. I don't feel really inspired, but I remember seeing that meme. I was like, all right, Mr. Smart Guy who makes these memes, I'll start writing this book. So it was a good time to do it.
No, it's great. And there's a discipline certainly that because I currently know the side of not doing writing when I should be and doing it, but it's just to sit down and write it. But your story is so crazy. So like this being about grief, and rather than segue into so many things I want to talk about in your book, but your brother Harding, what was his name?
Lee Harding. Yeah.
Lee. So it was like a total stud athlete, good kid. And how old was he?
Totally. So he would have been in 8th grade and I was in 6th, but at the time he seemed like you, he seemed like a grown up, when you're a kid, someone a little older. So his name was Larry, named after my father, but he loved the $6 Million Man starring Lee Majors. Yeah. I was more into Farrah Fawcett or who, yeah. No, who played the Bionic Woman? Yeah. That was, Wagner.
Lindsay Wagner.
Wagner. Yeah. But anyway, so he changed his name to Lee when he was young. He wanted to be like Lee Majors, the $6 Million Man. And my parents, I guess, were like, all right. And it just stuck.
They were really cool people.
Similar to me, my name was John Thomas Harding, but I didn't want to be John or Tom. Even as a kid, it seemed too boring for me. So I changed my name to JT. Can you imagine? I was like,
you're not a John or a Tom for sure. No. Yeah.
And I'm from Michigan. JT was so much easier to write in the snow. If you're picking up what I'm putting down. So yes, he was great at sports. I just remember he was great with animals. Like he was always like, feeding the squirrels or helping an injured bird. He had great buddies, which I'll get to part 2 of that. Girls liked him. And just being totally honest with everything going on in the world today, I certainly don't think he was doing any drugs. I certainly don't think he was depressed, but I was just a kid. But yes, he unfortunately took his own life, and there's no way to explain it, or it's just one of the great mysteries. And going back to the book, I did 10 drafts of the book. I kept thinking this could be better. There's a better detail about working for Linkin Park. I know a better detail about when I lost this writing deal. Oh, I know a better detail about writing Beers and Sunshine with Darius Rucker. So I kept working on the book, and then the 10th draft, I was like, man, I'm skipping like a major part of my life. So I put the chapter about, Lee in there, and then kind of referenced it later in life, how I would like be reminded of him. And the publisher was like, what is this? But the point I'm trying to make is I don't think I've ever really learned how to talk about it, but even just like you and I would never be talking about this as close as we are if it wasn't for this book. And I don't really know how to explain that. Maybe I was embarrassed, which I shouldn't have been, or I probably as a kid, like self-conscious, like you're going to a party and I've got like a stack of CDs. Hey, I'm the only guy that has the new Van Halen record. And then is someone going to be like, oh, that's the kid whose brother, killed himself. It's like, so even you can hear me now. It's like, I sound a little timid talking about it, but this is, so much better than I've ever been.
So that's a really, really interesting point, because I never thought about a kid being embarrassed
or something. It must be that.
And by the way, it's fine to use the word embarrassed, because when you're a kid, you just feel what you feel. It doesn't have to be good or right. My wife and I, when we're talking to families that are experiencing what we have experienced with losing a child, and they'll be like, well, we're not. When you know good and well what happened with the child, well, we're not saying anything till we're sure what happened, or we're very private and they don't want to. And I'm not judging them. Everyone's got their cross to bear and their road to take. But if as adults, if we get over whatever that thing is, whether it's suicide with our son, it was fentanyl. And the truth is that he was poisoned with fentanyl, but if he hadn't been taking drugs, he wouldn't have taken the fentanyl. And if we can talk about that, especially immediately while it's fresh, if we can talk about that, we can help a lot of people. But we're, especially the generation that our parents are from, we're so embarrassed of shit that happens to everyone that we miss multiple chances to help other people in that situation. Like I can imagine, but as you're saying that as a kid, it's like, oh, because my youngest son was in high school still when this happened with Sage, and they were tight and best friends. Sage was a popular kid. He was a football star at Father Ryan High School. People knew him. And so Jude loved me backstage. Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll get into that later. His Smile was his favorite song when he was a little kid. It was amazing. It always touches my heart when I think about that. He had a kind of a big presence, and Jude loved being his little brother, but I didn't really think about until you just said that for 16-year-old Jude, what was that like? Now I'm the kid that's brother for the rest of his high school life, he was the kid that's brother died. And we were very open with it. But it was interesting when I read the book. I thought, man, he didn't spend very much time on that. And the fact that you almost released that book without putting that in,
Yeah, terrible.
talk about denial.
Yeah, totally.
Let's be honest.
And it's interesting. So my brother Lance, who is gigantic, who's like, but he's younger than me, but he's big like my dad, Larry Harding. I'll keep saying the names because I know it's confusing.
Yeah.
He's
With all of your dads, we got to be clear who we're talking about.
He's as big as these lights, Lance. He was different. And don't forget, when this happened with my brother, I was in 6th grade. So I was just starting to go the next year to dances and like, flirting with girls and making out with girls. So it was this big thing of like, oh no, do they know? My brother Lance was different. I would run into someone and they would say, oh yeah, I had a crush on your brother Lance. And then I probably shouldn't say this, but and he was telling me all about, your brother that died. And I was like, he was? I was like, oh my God. I don't know if he was doing that to get sympathy or what, but he's much more open than I am. But no, but it's a good thing I'm a songwriter. I'd probably be in a straitjacket somewhere upstate.
Oh, for sure. Because the
on
truth
a phone
is,
that doesn't have a plug in it.
Yeah, that intrinsically changed you, whether you know it or not. And I don't know if you noticed that your parents were never the same after that, but they weren't. I can tell you because I am one.
Yeah.
Never. Not that it's, there are some great blessings in this journey, but I can assure you that your parents were never the same people.
Oh,
there's
never.
no way for them to.
And a couple of things on that, which reminded me of you and your wife talking to parents. My mom was just a hero. She dove into, I'm getting the name wrong. I think it was like Michigan Suicide Association, but it was the prevention of it. Mm-hmm. And she went and talked to people all over the state and parents, and she was on TV, but she's not like me, like, hey, I'm coming in the room, with a one-liner, and so I think she helped a lot of people, helped a lot of families. And so that was fantastic.
That's
and then
awesome.
I actually felt bad. This is probably 6 or 7 years ago when it really came to my mind. I was like, I wished I was there more for my mom, because I could remember her. We had a cottage up north in Michigan. I could hear her crying, and I'm in the back room putting, Kiss makeup on and working on my moves. And I remember I went to see a therapist, and I feel bad that I didn't really know what to say to my mom. And the therapist was great. She just said, you were a kid. That wasn't your job. And I was like, oh, all right. So there you have it. Yeah.
100%. Jude, our youngest son, I just brought up to, he and I went for a walk or a hike or something like months after Sage died. And he said, Dad, I just feel guilty that he goes, Sage is like my best friend, but I feel guilty that I don't feel as bad as you and Mom do. And I said, oh, thank God you don't. You're not supposed to. We don't want you to feel as bad as us. We want you to be you. It's different. Believe me, it's different. I hope that you never have this feeling, but you're not. I said, don't feel guilty. Do not feel guilty about good days. Do not feel guilty. The thing with Mom and I is something that you'll never understand until you have a child of your own. And when and if you do have a child of your own, you'll kind of get the way that we feel. And only by losing that child, which I please God would pray that you never did, would you feel that. Do not take on the responsibility of trying to feel like we do. And that's good, really good.
Great advice.
It's amazing. A therapist actually said something smart.
Yeah, exactly. And going back a second to you and I talking, this thing that I'm embarrassed to say embarrassed. Let me just also say self-conscious. Right. The thing I'm pointing at the book, the thing that I was the most self-conscious about maybe in my life, not like in the last 15 years, but just growing up, is the thing that the most people have come to me and talk about. We've already talked about, hey, I was adopted too, but I got a lot of messages like that years ago when Jay and I were on TV causing all sorts of trouble. We were on TV shows together, Jay Thomas and I, that wouldn't even show us because we were so wild. They were hoping for a tearful reunion. I would come running out in my underwear on live television, all sorts of stuff. I threw a shoe at him when he was on David Letterman because he didn't mention me, and I got thrown out of the David Letterman show. So that was great. But a lot of people write me or come up to me or other podcasts and say, hey, I lost a brother, I lost a son. And it's interesting how this thing that you're self-conscious about, so many people can relate to, unfortunately, but they can. Yeah.
Yeah. A friend of mine, I won't even say who it is. It's a songwriter that a lot of people would know. He said to me after Sage's funeral, because I spoke at it and I just told the truth. And he said, yeah, that's something that people would think, that other people would think less of you for. When you shared that, I couldn't possibly think more of you because you shared that. And I said, it's funny because I never thought about people thinking less of me for telling the truth, because it's funny when we stand up somewhere and we dance around something that everyone knows the truth to.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't just say it. It's become very easy for me.
Totally. Did you tell the truth a lot when you were growing up to your parents about sneaking out of the window and stuff?
No.
No.
Well, I'll tell you when I started telling the truth is when I got sober.
I just heard 1,000 people going, no.
No.
Totally.
No.
And that's the difference. As a kid, yeah, you wouldn't, bring it up, or I wouldn't, but now, yeah. But you can hear me. I'm glad we're doing this now, because the first few, I've done a lot of great interviews about the book, and I would be stumbling over the words. It would be like, so tell me about your brother. I'm like, oh, Lance, he was a 4-year freshman at Michigan State. He was a tackling dummy. What else do you want to know about him? And they're like, no, the other one.
The other one. Yeah, it's when I was reading the book, that stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, what? I've known JT a long time. This has never come up. It's just something that he, obviously hadn't. And you're not supposed to take on more than you're supposed to. But there's also moments of like, okay, there are reasons for our personalities. Some of it, obviously, there's genetics involved. It's amazing for me to hear how you're raised by these other parents. You just like, no, I'm still a songwriter. I'm still an entertainer.
Yes.
There's no hiding that.
Yeah. Oh, every time I open the fridge, I do it when the light comes on. I do 30 minutes of stand up. I always have. Yeah. Because that comes. But also Jay Thomas hated music. He was like, the Beatles are hippies. Elvis is a thief of black music. Dylan's a moron. The Handles took the Vandals, and the Cat said this on the mat. So I don't know where the music thing comes from, but my parents encouraging me to be in
creative
bands.
is creative though.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Jay was creative. He was a DJ.
Definitely.
By the way, what we do rarely has a ton to do with music.
Yeah.
We all know the same 4 chords, and we're playing. And I love the musical part of music, but what we're really searching for lyrical ideas that are compelling. And
you are also correct, because I can remember as a kid taking some sort of, I don't even know what it was. Maybe it was like a fishing pole, and I would put a fake mic on it, and I would press, the 2 buttons to record on a tape recorder. I'd say, this is JT, and this is the new song by Paul McCartney. But I had never I did not know who Jay Thomas was. I had no idea, never thought about who he was, but I was pretending I was a DJ at a very, very young age. And Jay was, a disc jockey forever.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you have no knowledge of what?
No, none at all. It's wild, right? Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we give genetics enough credit for a lot.
Yes.
They are responsible for a lot. And it does lead me to believe that I don't have as much control. I can control my effort and my attitude, but it's not a whole lot. I was going to be a songwriter. I was 12 years old. I just was playing guitar and started writing songs. I don't even know why. I guess I wanted to be a rock star, and you had to write your own songs, but I just started writing songs so that our band would have something to play.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That puts you in a different league, because as I say in the book, I'm growing up and I see my babysitter's boyfriends, or the guys that teach guitar at the Guitar Center, or I have all due respect for all those people. The guy that was trying to teach me how to play guitar, which didn't work very well. I just couldn't get it. But they were all in playing cover songs at bars. And there was something in me at a very young age. I was like, I don't want to be doing that. I better start figuring out how to write songs. So you had that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And I saw that picture of you and your brother when you were kids. I thought, man, this would have been great. Teenage Miami Vice. I mean, your hair was incredible. Yeah. I called you guys I said Miami Future Vices.
I wouldn't call that hair incredible. My mom had cut our hair with paper scissors.
That's great.
And
it cost a fortune to look this messy. Yeah.
Oh man, you talk about, it would have been bowl cuts if she had a steady hand. Yeah. Instead, maybe it looked like it was cropped or something. No, bad haircuts all the way through. And music in our family, mom and dad both sang and played instruments, whatever. But man, writing or being creative or as a job, we got lots and lots and lots of, this is not a job. No TV in our house ever when we were growing up. So
it's wild.
They gave us, and you're not allowed to play rock and roll, but you have to play music. That was the perfect street to first of all, screw you, I'm playing rock and roll. And we just became I'm convinced if you don't want a kid to do something, or if you really want a kid to do something, forbid him to do it.
Yes. To me, I don't know who's listening to this, but to me growing up, and I don't think I was maybe addicted to TV, but I loved watching, Good Times and Family Ties. And I can't say it enough, MTV. I would sit all day on a Saturday watching Live Aid. My dad would come in and turn the TV off, go outside, and then we'd go to someone else's house to continue watching. To me, saying growing up in a house with no TV is literally like saying to a teenager today, imagine you're the only person at your school that doesn't have a phone. Yeah. You can't even imagine it.
That's what it was like.
Yeah. You can't even imagine it.
Outcast socially, but they gave us the gift of boredom. There was nothing to do but work. We had lots of work, lots of chores. I mean, lots of work. And I do love to work. I've mentioned before about chores, but I do love to work. But just mindless chores and garden. We had to grow food, and we lived in a suburb and had to like live like Amish people in a suburb. So no television, and we didn't know what anyone was doing or talking about when they talked about TV shows, and you felt out of place. But we had instruments sitting around our house, and we all learned how to play just out of boredom because there was nothing else to do. So we had to entertain
like the
ourselves.
White Jackson 5.
Yeah, a little bit like the Warren 4. It was rough emotionally because I was always embarrassed. We had crappy clothes, crappy haircuts. You didn't know what was going on TV, so we were like the Amish kids coming into like New York City all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, we were.
And even they have phones.
Yeah, no, they have phones now. I don't know what they would do at this. Like, my mom has a TV now. I'm like, Mom, what are you don't be watching that TV. It's bad for you. It's how you raised
exactly.
us.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine. I can't,
It was wild.
Yeah.
It was wild. And we were part of the problem with our artist career when we got to, any certain point, we were so surprised that we had made it to any sliver of pop culture. We had a 3-day drunken number 72 party when we were in Billboard, entered at 72.
That's great.
We saw our names in the magazine we had grown up reading and just lost our minds and just partied over it. Because we're like, oh my God, we're in Billboard.
That's great.
We were so surprised with any success that it became the alcohol and drugs became a problem.
Yeah.
As they were going to.
Now everyone's like, I should be in the paper all the time. I should be on the.
That's now I'm like, why aren't we at number one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of it, the number one counting, which we'll get to that. But well, I'm glad that you talked about your brother. And I think, it's funny because you're a happy guy. You're just a positive, happy person. And you've had kind of a road. I mean, I'm not saying that it's bad. You actually had 2 great sets of parents, and finding out your dad is your friend and he was famous. Did that, going back to Tim McGraw again, Tim told me one time that knowing he was Tug's son, let him know that something was possible. That's the gift that Tug gave him.
Great.
Like knowing that my father was famous and successful, let me know that there was something outside this little town in Louisiana that I could accomplish. And that was the gift Tug gave to him. Did you ever get that feeling?
I don't know if I got that from Jay, but when I first met him, and don't forget, I'm in LA, always had a job, but didn't really have any money. Was playing, shows anywhere I could. And Jay would come to the shows and there was a little buzz in the audience. There was like, oh, this actor is here. So I enjoyed that. But I was, at Tower Records where I worked. I mean, every rock star came in, Prince, Michael Jackson, Kurt Cobain. So I was always thinking, it didn't seem like it would be easy to get, but I always thought, oh, I can get into this magical world somehow. But no, the Jay thing was more of just kind of, I think I liked standing in the glow of his, fame at the time. But
did you ever get pissed that you didn't grow up completely in that, or no?
No, not at all, because he wasn't with my biological mother. And she's a great lady, but she's always very angry towards him the times we talk. So I mean, who knows what would have happened? I probably would have been visiting Jay once a year in New York, and he would have seemed like a hero. So I'm glad that he didn't raise me. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, definitely.
Because you start off from a broken home before you had a chance to. You kind of got the best of both worlds.
And then he was remarried and has this incredible wife, Sally. So no, I wouldn't have changed it for anything. Yeah. But my mom wrote him a letter and said, wow, I really understand JT more now that I've met you and seeing you. So that was interesting.
Harding mom.
Yes, the Hardings. Yes, definitely. So that was interesting.
Did they get to meet each other?
Oh yeah, they met Jay, and then they just, they all got on like gangbusters, And Jay loved football too, so he loved talking to my dad about all that. Yeah,
it's true. Your dad being a coach at Vanderbilt and a guy that played in the NFL. That there's like when I grew up, I didn't know anyone famous or successful. I didn't. This is the truth. I didn't know anyone as successful as me.
Yeah,
my whole childhood, and I'm not that
as you are now,
as I am now. Yes. Like I didn't know anyone connected to anything and back when being on TV meant something, someone that was on TV or someone that was on the radio. No one. If I had known a local DJ, I would have felt like I was in the know. We were just really cornered off into this small church in a small community. There were some great parts to it. The gift of boredom and the gift of rebellion. Yes. I miss a little bit music being a rebellion. Like we got out from under our parents and wore crazy clothes. And now in order to be rebellious, you have to worship Satan, because the parents are us now. Yes. And we're like, yeah, rock and roll, grow your hair to your waist. I don't care.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Get a neck tattoo at 17. I'm cool.
Dad's doing yoga naked in the yard. I thought I was the rebel. Going back to what you said,
Did you
I
get here
also
early?
knew people. Yeah. There was a guy at an opposing high school named Andy Nira, who I don't know where he is now. And he had this incredible hair and incredible clothes. He was a few years older than me. When we were in high school, his band opened up for In Excess, which was like, you might as well tell me that aliens land. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So I had little clues that things could happen. They ended up getting a record deal. Yeah.
Yeah, like when we became
their hair was better than their songs, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a band like that. Believe me, you've seen pictures. And we opened for Quiet Riot. It was kind of after their, it's funny. They never got that big. They had the 2 big songs, and then there's nothing. Yeah. It was just band. They were, whatever it was. We get to play. We
changed their song to "Come On, Feel the Boys," and you and Brett would stand on stage and say, "Hey, ladies, bad business thing on you."
Okay, yeah, there you go. I thought you went to each other. That would have been really weird. Gosh. I don't know where you were going with that for a minute, but they were just not that great. And and I'm like, it gave me a little hope. And it also was kind of like, this is kind of discouraging. Yeah. That 80s rock thing. I'm glad that we never got any traction doing that, because I wouldn't want to be
totally
doing that. I love being a songwriter. It ages so well.
Yeah, exactly.
It really does age well. We get to go and entertain and play the songs, and we've been able to be part of people's lives, but there's not, it's just, you're able to continue to be a level, regular human being, and you still get to entertain for a living.
Absolutely. And you guys do it great. And so I moved out, I looked on the back of all my CDs. I know you know this, but they all said the record company, Sunset Boulevard, California. So I went there, and I'm working at Tower Records. I loved 80s rock, but I couldn't play guitar like that. And, I like to say I was kind of stuck at the intersection of Bret Michaels' hairpiece and Eddie Vedder's flannel. I wasn't angry like the grunge guys, but like the music was great. But I wasn't doing the 80s rock, and I was putting bands together. But then the Counting Crows came out, and the Sheryl Crow album came out, Hootie and the Blowfish. And then at Tower Records, I was in charge of the country CD section. And they said, you don't know anything about this music, so we'll give you some of the promos to take home. So I heard Dina Carter.
Oh, yeah. Strawberry Wine was a game
I heard
changer.
Vince Gill, and I was like, oh, not that country music is easy to write, but I was like, well, this kind of sounds like what I'm doing. 3 chords, just some cool lyrics. I mean, the Sheryl Crow lyrics were fantastic. So it's interesting you say that. I'm glad I didn't get any traction in some kind of, 80s band as well.
My thing about country is I didn't love like the twang and the steel guitar and the voices, but even early on, I loved the stories.
Yes.
I always talk about the song Nobody. Your Nobody called today. She hung up and I asked her name. Was it Sylvia? I should know that because I talk about the song all the time. But I'm like, oh my God, this is brilliant.
Yes.
And that part always attracted me. So I would try to write lyrics like that, which badly, and put them in metal songs. It just really didn't really work out that well. But that was always in my mind, and the songwriting piece of it aged well over time. And you're kind of subject to what era you were born in. Like our kids are going to like, Morgan Wallen will be a staple. That's their Bon Jovi. And it's so funny because I've known Morgan since he moved here a little bit. It's weird. But kids, for even my kids, like that's their Bon Jovi. He's that big.
It'll be the soundtrack to their lives. Yeah.
And they'll never not listen to those songs and it be part of their life. And I remember what I was doing. I was graduating from high school and Sanding My Boots was out. And that was there. And it's so close to us now. I don't fathom it anymore.
Yeah, it's wild. And going back to rewind a little bit, another interesting thing that you couldn't plan out. My brother Lee, his best friend in the world, that they played baseball all the time, and he would sleep over, and I would just like not even paying attention to them, was a kid named Rich Waller. So then when my brother passed away, Rich and I started hanging out all the time, and Rich was really into music, but I didn't know that because they were always, in their baseball uniforms, like throwing baseballs. So Rich was really. He was a drummer, and I couldn't play any instruments, but I could pose and be the ringleader. So I'm like, I'll be the lead singer. So Rich, it was like I say in the book, it's like I lost a brother, but I gained another one. And Rich would point out to me, like, look at how this song changes. Like I would say, this part of the song in Bryan Adams feels like the roof of the car coming off and you're cruising down the highway. I didn't know it was called a bridge, but we just knew we needed that in our songs. Or he would say, listen how the drums drop out at the end of Jump, or every Van Halen song. The drums will drop out and the guitar will keep going. And he was like, yeah, that's called dynamics. It makes you feel like you're on a roller coaster. To this day, I do that in every one of my songs. But when Rich and I have become friends like that, or, rehearsed every day like an army with our band Dirty Tricks if my brother hadn't passed away. It's interesting,
There's some really weird, crazy synergies to certain things. I mean, did he ever give you any insight on what your brother was going through, or did it's just something that just
no one knew? It was just no one ever really. It was just a shock to everybody.
I have some friends that obviously, because I have this group of dads that lost children, so I have some friends that their sons committed suicide and daughters, and it's like a bad moment. They had a bad day, like a kid has a bad day.
Yes,
and they made a bad decision on a bad day, thinking this is how they. And when you're old like us,
moment that you
it's
can't
like this.
Get out
this is going to pass. This too shall pass, whether it's a good day or a bad day. I'm trying to live on a 5, instead of a 1 or a 10 all the time. And as a kid, you don't know how to do that. I remember when I was 15, I got caught smoking pot. We smoked pot at church, me and my best friend. And at church during the service, we snuck out and smoked pot.
Good thing you didn't watch MTV. You would have been snorting cocaine off a Bible.
Oh no, I was certainly that was going to happen. I mean, that was based on what we were being taught inside that church. We were definitely going to hell anyway, so I just smoked a pot.
Yeah.
I got kicked off the basketball team, which seems like, yeah, of course you did. It's a tiny school. It was my whole life. I was in 11th grade. I was a young 11th grader. It was enormous. It was insurmountable that my friends would all leave to go to a game at noon. And I'm a basketball guy. That's what I do. I couldn't get over it. This is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And I literally handled losing my own son better than I did getting kicked off the basketball team, because that's how ill-prepared children are for the emotional roller coaster. Moments. And you just hate to see that bad moment become so final.
I hope I'm not making light of it or changing gears, but as songwriters, do you know the U2 song Stuck in a Moment? Bono wrote that about Michael Hutchence taking his life. Yeah. This moment will pass. You got to get yourself, you're stuck in a moment. Like it's just a moment. And
no, I don't think it's making light at all. The truth is that the taking of a life, and usually the losing of a life, a lot of times, especially when it's someone that goes too early and in their youth, it's a bad moment. It's a bad day. It's a bad night. Yeah. And man, if I could just get every kid to, just say, just you're an adult a lot longer than you're a kid. Just hang on and survive.
Oh yeah.
You'll be an adult for the next 50 years.
Yes.
Don't let being a kid for 5 ruin it. You know what I mean? To 18 or 15 to 22.
Yes. Then my dad, and I say in the book, and my dad could obviously speak well. He was a salesman, but I don't ever remember him giving speeches or anything other than, yelling at other coaches or whatever. And, he was great at that. Yeah. But at my brother's funeral, and luckily it's written down. I actually found it and I put it pretty much verbatim in the book. He got up in front of everyone. Oh, and the funeral was just like, as you've experienced, unfortunately, it's packed with people, kids in little league outfits. And he said this, I can't remember the quote exactly, but he just said, he got up there and he just said, I've been driving myself crazy. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? And he said, I think I figured it out. A message to all of you other kids here, don't fool around. Don't get lost in a moment. Don't experiment maybe, trying to make sense of it. My brother, it's hard to say he actually hung himself. So if he was fooling around or if he was pushing the limits, of the $6 million man, who knows? Yeah. And my dad was just saying, this is just a message to all you kids, just be careful because we need you. You're the future. It was incredible,
It's funny. I talked at Sage's funeral and I said, I talked a lot to the kids, his peers, his friends, my other son's friends, and just said, treat alcohol like a loaded weapon and treat drugs like a ticking time bomb, because alcohol is fine. If you treat it like a loaded weapon, I'm careful with a loaded gun. Yeah. I'm not swinging the loaded gun all around. I'm not using it every day. It's a cautious, but, and by the way, I don't have the need for a loaded weapon all the time. So I don't have one very much. Alcohol is that. It takes that amount of respect.
Wow. That's heavy. Yeah. I don't like guns and I don't like alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, like I've been with you, like, let's say I've been with you 100 times.
If I was a drunk, I'd probably be a big star. Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know what's harder, not drinking or watching you try to drink.
Put that on the back of the book. Yeah.
You just don't drink very much, Just like you're allowed to.
Can we speak freely? We did a show in Upper Wisconsin, and you know the quote: "The further north you go, the further south you get." Yeah, there were a lot of hillbillies up there. Yeah, but someone said, "Brad, can I get you a drink?" And it was this huge party, and you said, "No, you don't have enough." Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, I really mean that too. It's like you have no idea what you're getting. Different alcoholics recovering have different ways of going about it. They anonymous. I am not anonymous. I am an alcoholic. Believe me, you don't want me drinking. Unless you're a cocaine dealer, you don't want me drinking. There's no other reason for anyone to want me. It's not a good.
I knew you'd make me cry. I didn't know it was from laughter.
But after 17 years, I can joke about it. But yeah, there's no. It makes me think about your brother and think about that one, whatever that moment was, and with the kids and the substance abuse. Here's what I say to parents. If you have 10 kids that got in trouble for drinking, because here's what the parents do. They hide this from the other parents. Okay, I'm going to tell your dad you're drinking if you do it again. No, tell the dad right now, because if you take 10 kids that got caught doing something, 1 or 2 of them is going to have a real problem, a life-threatening problem. And when you don't share that information with the other parents, you're taking away an opportunity for them to deal with what might become a real problem. Because when they say, well, this is the first time, but if 2 other parents haven't told them something that's happened with drugs or alcohol at their house, maybe it's the 3rd time that this 16-year-old's had an issue. And maybe there is an issue. But because we want to be cool parents and we don't want to spread that, I'm going to tell your dad if you do that again. And I know there are parents that weren't honest with me. I'll tell you this, when I have gone to the ends of the earth to find parents that I didn't even know the parents of the kids. When I find out, I'm saying, I'm not judging your kid. And some of them I know your kid's a great kid, but I want you to have all of the information, good, bad, or ugly, and let you decide how to deal with your kid. Yeah, but with us trying to monitor the information we give to another parent, shame on you, shame on us if that's what we're doing. And that's part of the reason that I'm open about the whole thing. I'm honest, almost to a fault, maybe to the discomfort of some people, because
but if it saves somebody's life, there you go.
One life.
Yeah.
If it saves one life, I'll be the asshole that ruins every kid's summer by telling the parent. And by the way, the kids come over and they look at, your dad's long hair and tattoos. We can do anything we want. And then they're kind of like, and by the way, I love my son's friends. A lot of them are just like my own kids. I love them, but you're not coming here. This is not the house kids come to get drunk. I can tell you that. They know.
For those of you who haven't been here, this house is beautiful. It's entirely white. So this is not somewhere you come to eat spaghetti either. Yeah.
You're going to stay at the table and wear a bib. Yeah. Well, it's funny. Michelle is raising the voice. She said, no, if I have white furniture and white walls, they'll know that they can't just get it dirty and I won't notice.
Yeah.
And the truth is
that's why they tiptoe through the mud with those nice white shoes they have. Yeah. I've seen teenagers doing that. It's like, what's going on? Yeah.
Because they're shoe hounds. Anyway, I don't know how I got off on the tangent, but it's kind of good to say that out.
No, it's great.
It's not judging someone's parenting, by the way, because I lost a child. I've lost any desire or right to judge someone's parenting. But man, the idea of not sharing every piece of information with a parent, and I know I thought of it because of your brother, but in that day and time, when you were a kid, when I was a kid, and our parents were where we are now, people didn't share anything. No. Everything was a shame. If you're gay, don't talk about it. If you're anxious, don't talk about it. If you're depressed, don't talk about it. If your kid has a drug problem, oh God, it's embarrassing. It's Exactly. And we didn't talk about anything. And I'm like, good God, how did our parents function without having nervous breakdowns every week? If they had social media and didn't talk about anything.
Yeah. My mom did. She fainted once when different subjects. She took the 3 of us to the doctor when we were kids. I don't remember it. I was running around riling up the whole waiting room. And then my other brother, I think, was opening all the drawers. And then my other brother kind of jumped off one of the tables and landed on his head. And then so they were trying to wrangle us. And then the doctor was screaming to come help my mom because she fainted. It's great. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Good times.
Every mother with more than one child. I mean, there's moments.
Yes.
Like our 3 boys, just at a clothing store, they would literally be under the clothes racks like mice. And you couldn't find anywhere where they were, tipping the mannequins over. Yes. But, just
like mice. I like that.
Yeah.
You got to write a book. I love you have all the details.
I'm working on it. I'm gonna. Yeah.
And then also, it comes back also, I didn't write the song, but I'll hear the song "Who He'd Be Today." It's a song that Kenny Chesney put out.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll catch me off guard, and I'm like, "Oh, who would my brother be today?" Yeah.
Yeah.
What would he be doing?
That's the hardest part of it for me, because I believe I know where Sage is, and I believe it with all my heart, and I feel him around me, and I know the effect he's had on people, and I know he's good, and that lets me know that we're good. But it does sometimes. I'm like, man, what would he, and sometimes I think, hey, maybe God let him slide through because there was going to be something that sucked really bad out there for him, or something that it was. I try to find grace in all of it, but yeah, there's no way to not stop and think, what would. Exactly. And when you look at your other brother, the linebacker,
Lance,
you're like, I wonder how big he would have been with it,
Don't say his name 3 times; he'll appear. Yeah.
Like he would have been so big that the big brother couldn't have possibly picked on him anymore. Totally. What would that have been like as adults?
Yeah, that's why we never fought as kids. My brother is gigantic. Lance.
Lee and Lance,
and JT. Yeah.
I had friends named Lee and Lance growing up. Yeah, and brothers, Lee and Lance Rogers. Yeah, that's totally not even an interesting comment, but I just
thank God for editing.
Edit that crap out of there. So when one of the things that I want to talk about is you moved to LA like 17.
Yeah, I was 17. Yeah. Speaking of shame, I was like, I'm going to take the GED. Is this embarrassing? Well, there was no stopping it. As I said, I would watch, MTV put bands together. I was just like, there was a magical world I want to crawl into. Video seemed real to me. Concerts seemed real to me. I didn't know there were cameras and lights and pause buttons. And I went out there. I had won the Battle of Bands. I had $300 in the bank. And at that time, there were all these commercials on TV, which you never saw. Southwest Airlines, fly anywhere. It was like when Southwest was new, it was like the cheap airline, And so I got like a one-way ticket to Southwest, and I had been out there on vacation with my parents, and I knew on Sunset Boulevard, there were kids passing flyers out. There were all these bands, and Poison and Guns N' Roses had been signed. Yeah, I just went out there. I mean, it is a miracle by the grace of God that I didn't get into drinking or drugs or all that other stuff.
You got to credit genetics to that too, because I would have been shooting up with Guns N' Roses.
Well, yes. I don't know. I mean, Jay smoked enough pot to kill a small horse. So it just, what wasn't in me. So I moved out to LA, and I just, got a job, met some kids on the Sunset.
How'd you find somewhere to live? I mean, I know it's covered in the book, but I did read the book and I love it.
Oh,
but
no,
I don't remember every detail.
There was a little teeny hotel, and I went walking the Sunset Strip. And at that time, there were girls everywhere. Everyone wanted, the guys were prettier than the girls. So I had to say, are you a guy or a girl? I'm looking for a roommate. Yeah.
It was a scary place back then because of that.
Yeah, exactly. I met some girls. They just, we just moved here from Orange County. We need a roommate. So it just, I don't know. I think I was so naive that something could happen that it just did. And I never, looked back. Yeah.
But
when I called home to tell my parents.
You got a job doing what?
First at a restaurant, and then at a movie theater, used clothing store, which is I'd never been around anyone famous before. And, I was working at a used clothing store called Aardvarks. It's still there. And there was one rule at the clothing store. You can't take the clothes off the mannequin in the window, because those were the good used clothes. And the bell above the door rang one day, and I was folding some jeans, and I heard this voice, I want that shirt. And I just looked next to me, and I didn't see anyone. I looked about a foot down, and standing there in front of my naked, steaming eyeballs was Prince, the rock star. I'd never seen anyone famous before. I know the stories in the book. I mean, he was small, but I mean, I still get a chill thinking about it. I mean, I couldn't believe he was standing there. I just couldn't believe it. So he's pointing at the shirt on the mannequin, and I'm not allowed to take it out of the window. So I said to Prince, no problem. So I tell this at my show. It's in the book. I jump up, I pull the mannequin down. It's making all sorts of noise. The arm falls off, the shirt's on it. And the boss comes screaming out of the back room. What are you doing? And, this guy, the owner of the store, was really heavyset, and he wore a Grateful Dead t-shirt every day. And I would always say, you look like you ate Jerry Garcia in that shirt. And they said, what are you doing? I said, Prince wants the shirt, and I'm giving him anything he wants in the store, because
this is Prince.
It's Prince. He made me dream. He got me through breakups. I mean, his music. So fire me, do whatever you want. I gave Prince the shirt. So I had jobs like that, but it wasn't getting me any traction with my music. I'd put bands together. So I would always think a little bit backwards. Okay, if you want to get a record deal, you have to, have a song. So I got to write a song. Or you need a band to play the song. That's not exactly backwards, but I thought, I'll get a job at Tower Records, the record store. I was going there every Friday night to look at
terrible idea. Yeah,
look at new CDs, all the magazines, all the books. It just felt like it happened in place. And I thought, well, people deliver CDs here. I can tell them about my music. They can go back to Capitol Records and say, hey, you know, there's a kid that works at the record store that writes songs. Once again, I'll say it again. I was so naive that something like that could happen, that it did. I would scour the magazines. I would look at all the credits on the CDs, memorize the names. And then one day a guy put his credit card down at Tower Records and it said Brian Koppelman on his credit card. And I was like, oh, you signed Tracy Chapman and you signed this guy, Joshua Caddison. He had that song, Jesse Paints a Picture. Do you remember that song?
Oh, yeah,
Could have been a country song. And he said, wow, yeah.
What was that again? Jesse Paints a Picture about how
Joshua Caddison.
Yes,
yeah.
Wow.
And there was a huge hit at the time.
Yeah.
Tracy Chapman won all these Grammys. And I'll never forget, Brian said, wow, I can't believe you know my name. You must love your job. And I said, oh yeah, this is part of my get rich slow scheme working here. And I just gave him my demo.
A long, slow climb to the middle. I'm on
That's your book.
Yeah, that might be it.
So then he called me and said, your songs are great. Do you have any more songs? And I ended up getting a record deal. I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but yeah, I give my demo to everybody, man. Kurt Cobain, Sylvester Stallone. A lot of people don't know that Sylvester Stallone wanted Another One Bites the Dust to be the theme of the Rocky movie. Queen wouldn't give him the rights to it. So he just went searching for a song and he found Eye of the Tiger.
I was going to say, the Eye of the Tiger is Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah. And imagine
just
if
lighter.
If they used Another One Bites the Dust, we would never even heard of Eye of the Tiger. So I'm like, there's Sylvester Stallone chewing on an unlit match. I got to give him my demo. And also,
he was really chewing on a match. So that wasn't just like a Rocky character.
No, he really
so
was.
Rocky
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And another thing I say in the book, once again, we didn't have the internet. I couldn't just call up a record company. They didn't have phone numbers in the phone book or in the CDs.
It was a big deal to get that number was a big deal.
Totally. But I knew where the record companies were, you know, and they looked like as big as the Jurassic Park gates. You know, it's like, how do you get in here? But I knew this girl whose roommate worked at FedEx. So I borrowed the FedEx jacket, loaded up a little pack of my CDs. And, you know, I'd say like Obi-Wan Kenobi tap dancing into the Death Star. I would just wave at the security guard. Hey, how's it going? I walked past, you know, every single promotion guy, every secretary, put my CD in every mailbox. I did whatever I could to get noticed. You're
shameless.
Yes.
And I've never seen anyone enjoy promotion as much as you. It's really just like fun to you. The game, just from the box of books to the, you know, when we played Faster Horses, your social media. I mean, you're shameless. It's amazing.
Totally. I mean, it's easier now because I know it's like, hey, I have something good. But after passing out those CDs and no one calls, you're like, this is terrible. Is anything ever going to happen? You know? Yeah, I didn't think like, oh, Jay Thomas is my dad. I'm going to get a record deal. There were many nights where I was like, is this ever going to happen? You know?
If you don't have those nights, you don't deserve success.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You have to. Even if you just, I'm going to get kicked off The Voice tonight or whatever it is. You need some moments of this is not going to happen for it to make sense. Where in this time did you won Rock and Roll Jeopardy, right?
Yeah. So that's how I made my first demo in Los Angeles. If people don't know,
the movie could end right there. And you won like this kid, this idiot. I mean, and I say that with all love. Moves to LA by himself at 17 after winning a battle of the bands and being convinced. And he gets out there and actually gets to be on TV and win Rock and Roll Jeopardy. The credits could roll right then, and it'd be a pretty good movie.
Yes.
Would have been a pretty good book if it ended right there.
In Los Angeles, you know, I didn't have any money. I was like, how do I make a demo tape? Blah, blah. But nowadays, anyone on a computer is making music, but we didn't have that. But it's Los Angeles and all over telephone poles. It's like auditions for this or be on this infomercial. And I just saw a flyer that said VH1 has a game show. And I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. And I just called from the payphone and they asked me, they said, are you an actor? And I said, well, I can act. And so many actors, wannabe actors or dreamers, which is great. All of these game shows, we're seeing the same faces because all of the out of work actors were on all these game shows. I said, oh no, you haven't recognized me before. And so I went on VH1 Rock and Roll Jeopardy and I just destroyed the competition. And with that $2,000, I made my first demo, got a little 4-track. The host of Rock and Roll Jeopardy was the guy who is the host of Survivor now. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. And on the game, you can see it sometimes late at night. People will call me and go, or text me, I just saw you on some old game show. And he comes next to me and asks me a question. And I like wipe my eye like he accidentally spit on me, like in Smokey and the Bandit. Oh, the studio audience was howling, you know? Yeah, it was great.
Of course you did. You just answered every question. You knew it. I mean,
oh, totally. I knew it all. They weren't that hard. The hardest thing, they would show like the cover of Spin Magazine with Green Day on the cover. And they'd say, who is this band? The hard thing about Jeopardy is, at least Rock and Roll Jeopardy. If I watch real Jeopardy, I mean, the only way I could get on that show is if I climbed through a window and ran in front of the camera. Yeah, I would never make it on the audition. there were little lights off the screen that would go up like almost like the beginning of a race starting. All these yellow lights would go up and you couldn't push the buzzer until the lights hit the top of the screen or you'd be counted out. So I'm like, oh, I know the answer to this. Then I would have to wait for those lights to go up. Then I would like, bing, bing, bing.
That's the hardest part of it.
Yeah.
And you answered every question they asked?
Except the last one. Do you want me to give it to you? Do you know it?
Yeah.
All right, this is great. For all of you smart people out there listening to the podcast, Final Jeopardy. I was up by so many points. I knew I wouldn't lose, so I only bet $1. Here's Final Jeopardy. Female singers. It's open to everyone in the room.
Okay.
She is a member of the Royal British Army. She had 10 top 10 hits in the 80s, which is a lot. And she starred in the biggest movie of 1978. And then it would go ding.
Olivia Newton-John.
That's it. How'd you know that?
Boom.
Is that in the book? No. I mean, how'd you know that?
Well, there aren't that many British girl singers. The biggest movie of 1978 was Grease, I'm sure.
There you have it, yeah.
Yeah.
She's from Australia.
Okay, well, whatever. She had an accent. I'm that ignorant.
They're under British rule. Yes.
Okay.
Wow, no one got it. I can't believe you got it. Yeah.
I can't believe I got it. I'm much better for that.
You know that? Anyone else here in the studio audience? No.
We didn't get that?
The movie was Grease, yeah. Do you know how many top 10?
Did you put, that was not in the movie. I mean, in the book. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. I don't think it is. But like I've said that on other, podcasts and stuff, but no one gets it right. Yeah. But
when you said, I was thinking when you said the British Royal Army, I'm like, okay, there weren't that many people. And then the biggest movie in 1978, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't know what year Grease was, but I knew that was close.
Yeah, no, you're great. And that's a lot of hits. I mean, Let's Get Physical, suddenly all the Grease hits. I mean, that's a lot of hits, top 10 hits.
Yeah.
You should have her on your podcast.
Olivia Newton-John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should.
She passed away. Oh, entertainment business. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
Gosh darn it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Did you know that when you said that? You're a piece of shit that I love. That's amazing. I was gonna say when you said you should have her on your podcast, is she still alive? Because you
look like Cindy Brady. Well, you've never seen it on the Brady Bunch. Cindy Brady went on a game show and she just stared at the camera. Your face went like that, and your wife was waving.
It's funny. We went to LA.
Flamingos have backwards knees. Come on, God knows I was gonna say that before I was born. Yeah, I'm forgiven. Yeah.
So we drove from Tampa to LA to showcase.
Yeah.
Our band back that's a 50-hour drive. It was amazing. It's the most fun I've ever had in my life.
200-hour drive if you're sitting there with you and your brothers.
It's 100 if you take it back. It was a lot. It was a lot of time in a van. And we saw Dick Van Patten in a convertible, the very first stoplight we came to in Hollywood.
And were you starstruck?
Totally freaked out. And Dick Van Patten's not exactly Elvis, but it was like, oh my God, there's a guy on TV. He's right next to us in the car. And we're like, oh my God, it's there. And then we saw Cindy Brady walking her dog, and it was just the greatest. Never seen anyone famous before, and we saw two in like an hour. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It was like the Disney World of entertainment. I had the same experience you did. We were there for a week, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going home. And about day 7 or 8, I was like, oh, this place is kind of dark too. I want my mommy. There's a little bit of it when you.
I said that too. I want my mommy, both of them.
Yeah. I want my daddies and my mommies. And there was like Guns N' Roses was getting popular, and so you couldn't tell who the famous people were and the homeless people because they were dressed exactly the same. That was a very didn't tell who the hot girls and the trannies were because they looked the same. Everyone was a very confusing place to be. Totally. I just wasn't. We were like Amish kids almost, raised in this really Baptist, no TV upbringing, and I just wasn't equipped for it at the moment. So.
It's incredible. No, it's moving to Los Angeles or even visiting it. It's just like you see in the movies when Eddie Murphy goes out there in Beverly Hills Cop and he's looking over his shoulders, like, look at how these people are dressed. Everything's in Technicolor. Everybody looks great. There's, they say it never rains in Southern California, but it rains celebrities. There's famous people everywhere.
Yeah. There's stars everywhere but the sky.
Yeah. That's great.
And nothing but smog up there.
Yes.
Yeah. Stars on the Sidewalk.
Yes. If you're just joining us, my number 1 Amazon best-selling book, Party Like a Rock Star, available everywhere.
Is it number 1?
It hit number 1 on there's a songwriting section. It was like learn to play piano, learn to play accordion. JT Harding, Party Like a Rock Star. Yes.
That's amazing.
I did the audiobook as well. A lot of people asked me if there's an audiobook. Morgan Friedman was unavailable apparently, but I did the audiobook and it was a blast. Yeah.
Oh, you have to. It would be totally wrong for anyone but you to be reading.
Absolutely. They gave me a list of people, no one famous. I was like, why, am I going to have this, And there I stood meeting Slash, who had peed his pants. No, why would I do that? I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Oh, how long did that take?
That's a great question. I didn't know this. So you do 6 hours a day, 5 days in a row. Like I'm talking to you right now, I lost my voice.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I didn't know that. I'm like, how do these? My respect for Howard Stern and Rosie O'Donnell, all these people that are talking all the time on TV, just went through the roof. So I lost my voice, and they were like, "Well, we're kind of on a deadline," but I was not going to miss. I just said I won't talk all weekend, which you know me. It's like I talk a lot.
You have to lock yourself in the house, right?
Yeah, totally. And so luckily my voice came back and I finished it, but I didn't realize that talking 6 hours a day, you would lose your voice. Yeah.
Oh God, I can imagine. And you naturally talk a little louder when you think you're performing something. That's good.
Totally. And there were 3 rules. They said breathe. This is great. I didn't know this. They said breathe at the commas. I didn't know that because the script is in front of you on an iPad. Breathe at the commas, have fun, and no loud clothing. I think they meant jewelry because I was wearing my leopard outfit, luckily, but yeah. So,
no loud. Okay.
Yeah,
no jingling.
Yes.
You're on an episode of C with your jangling.
Yes.
And then, okay. So then we can't talk about like who you were a road manager for or whatever. And then in the book, you called him something else.
Yes. Thanks for asking. I did work. So I got my first record deal, made a record with John Mellencamp's band, had a video schedule. They're driving me around in limousines. And then the record company never called me again.
Pause real quick.
Yeah.
I think we were talking the other day when we were in Green Bay together last week. And I meant to tell you this. I think I remember seeing your video on, I don't know, some Vimeo or what, some old video channel.
Oh yeah, Party Like a Rock Star or something.
Party Like a Rock Star.
Yeah.
That song, I remember that song. Is that possible? Did I see your video?
Oh sure, we made a video. Yeah, my apartment building. So
well, no, I've seen it since then.
Yeah,
because I Googled it when I was reading your book, and I'm like, I've seen this video, and I never told you that until now.
Yeah, it was on Little Things and like the
video jukebox or something. Remember those things?
Of course, yeah, exactly. Okay. I was probably in that bar playing it on video jukebox.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a song
I'm sorry to interrupt that, but
it's all right. I had a song out after all this called "Party Like a Rock Star" that was big in some cities. But after I got my record deal, I lost the record deal. I say thanks to the music business, my heart's been broken more than the ice cream machine at the local McDonald's. I was kind of worn out.
You lost your record deal before or after Party Like a Rock Star?
Before. I lost it after that too. But I got the record deal at Tower, working, passing my demo, got a record deal. Lost that record deal. I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been doing all this in LA. I just thought, I didn't know people lost record deals at the time, but I've read a lot of books now, a lot of interviews.
You're on Curb.
Yeah, totally. I realized a lot of people lost record deals. You can just go do it again. Kiss lost their record deal. Sheryl Crow, Mariah Carey. It's happened to everybody, but I was a little bit worn out. So I got a job. I wanted to still be in the music business, but I got a job working. It's in the book. I call him the man in the sequin pajamas. I got a job working for this crazy wild rock star, but it was great. I went all over the world. I saw places with different cultures, different languages, different food. I've been all over Russia, Japan, Iowa, you name it, the strangest places in the world. So that's all in the book. And then I got a job working for Linkin Park. That's in the book as well. And they let me open up for them. I got booed off stage.
Oh yeah. Tell that story. Tell the whole thing. This is the most amazing. Right, this is so amazing.
Can we edit that out with what I said? I got booed off stage. So after working for the Wild Rock Star, all these other bands started calling me because I was throwing these big parties backstage for them. But I was always writing songs. I didn't want to work for any other bands, but then Linkin Park called me and they had a record label. So I thought, well, this is interesting.
Maybe. Oh, they owned a record.
They owned a record label. Yeah. So they were very low maintenance. They were great guys. They didn't drink. They didn't smoke. They were all married or in fantastic relationships. So I would work on my songs backstage. They'd show up for the show. I'd set their Xbox up. That's really all I really did for them. They were so nice, low maintenance, or maybe I'd put the markers out before their meet and greets. They would meet all their fans before the shows. And
what was your title? Assistant?
Yeah. Band assistant. Yeah.
Okay.
And once again, traveling the world on someone else's dime. It was great. And, so one night they said, hey, in Kansas City, I'll never forget it. Do you want to open up for us? They knew that I had a record deal. I didn't really talk about it much. That wasn't my job to promote my own music. So I'll never forget it. They were
stopped you before.
Yeah.
Sense.
I believe it was the band Slipknot was opening up for them. It was Slipknot and Linkin Park. And Slipknot, are the band that wear the masks. I saw them without the masks and I said, man, put those back on. So
you knew why they wore the masks.
Yes. Just me with an acoustic guitar, just almost like songs I write now, Sangria or Smile or whatever. So I go out on stage alone with an acoustic guitar, and I tell people, if you ever get the chance to stand in front of 40,000 people under a spotlight and hearing every single person in the place screaming, "You suck, you suck." I mean, it's magic, right? It gives you a chill, doesn't it? So Linkin Park.
Not everybody gets to experience that.
Yeah. So Linkin Park had asked me to be out there. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave. I'm just going to keep playing. I mean, they are booing so loud. You can't believe it. So I finally say, all right, Kansas City, how many people here like Ozzy Osbourne? And there was like a low rumble, you know, people kind of clapped. I said, well, here's a little Joan Osborne, because I was just doing anything now to get their attention. I start singing,
You're just giving them the
God
finger.
was one of anything not tied down was thrown at me. Lighters, shoes, bottles, cups, pennies, coins. It was raining hellfire down on me, but I kept singing. And all of a
You're
sudden,
like going down on the boat, the Titanic.
Yes.
You're the band on the deck of the Titanic.
Exactly. From the front of the stage to the back, like a jet engine starting, they just start to cheer. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm winning them over. I'm such a badass. Little did I know that Chester Bennington, the superstar tattooed lead singer of Linkin Park, had come on stage to rescue me. And I look back, I was like, oh, it's Chester. Okay. All right. It's up. My time is up. And his face was kind of scrunched up like a concerned parent that had smelled something bad in the fridge. I was like, why is he looking like that? And he wiped my forehead. And I was bleeding everywhere. I was so pumped up. I had no idea that a quarter or something struck me in the head and I was bleeding. So my knees get weak. He takes me off stage. The roadies come out with
Did you look for the quarter? Because that was the only money you were going to make that night.
No. Contraire, mon frere. The roadies had to run out with those big brooms that janitors have in high school to clean the stage off. And they were yelling, JT made a fortune. There was like $300 worth of, the stage was covered. Yeah. The next day in the newspaper, there's a great review of Linkin Park. We wake up in the hotel, the newspaper's everywhere. There's a giant color picture in the paper of Chester with his arm around me. I'm bleeding from the head. And that picture is in my book. And at the end of the review, there's like 3 lines that say the opening act was a one-man band called the JT Experience. Despite bleeding from the head, he finished a 2-song promising set. And a kid that saw me told his dad about me. I was passing out CDs by the tour bus. I don't even remember all this. Had a big bandage on my head. They called someone in LA and they were like, man, we saw this kid. You got to hear these songs. They called me and said, we have an office in Nashville called Combustion. Your songs are like 3-minute movies.
Are you kidding?
No.
Did I miss that in the book?
You must have. Yeah.
Or I'm not remembering it because that terrible show led to your publishing.
Yes.
Which led to your hit songs.
Yes. Meeting Prince. I didn't have a demo. Didn't have, any money, went on Rock and Roll Jeopardy, lost the record deal, got booed off with Linkin Park. Little did I know that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, was just guiding me down this path. Just keep going. You're going to end up writing hit songs. Yeah. And that's what got me to Nashville.
I think I was laughing so hard at the story of getting booed off. I didn't realize it would have had anything to do with, that's a good saying we use in recovery all the time. Stop trying to act like you know what just happened. If you hadn't had the balls to get booed off that stage, who knows?
Yeah, totally.
Maybe no publisher. So was Smile was your first hit, right?
Yeah. So then I was in Nashville and I had this song out on the internet. Some radio stations played it called Party Like a Rock Star. And someone showed that CD to Uncle Cracker, who did not know that I was from Detroit, but he's from Detroit. And he called me and he said, hey, we should write some songs. And we spent a weekend writing songs. And, he chain smokes. My eyes were as red as the Netflix logo, that whole writing session. But we ended up writing Smile. I always say it was Cracker's title. And he said, I want to write a song that, my 3 kids and my wife and my mom can dance around to. And I was like, oh, is that it? And we'll go to Nassau while we're at it. Yeah. But we ended up doing it. We wrote Smile and it became a really big hit. And that kind of busted the doors open. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've told you this before, but Smile was Sage, our oldest son, who passed away. That was his favorite song. There are like 6 pop culture things I think of when I think of him. The Office. He loved The Office.
Your son.
When I think it's Sage, he had he loved The Office. When he turned 13, I told him I take all of my boys when they turn 13, I take them on a trip somewhere. Our dad did it too. Just pick somewhere you want to go. Basically, I told him anywhere in the United States you want to go, we'll go for a weekend. Just a 13-year-old trip. Our dad had done it and we didn't travel as kids. So And he literally went to Scranton, Pennsylvania, because that's where the office is based, because he loves it. And I said, that's not where they shoot the show. And he said, yeah, I know. I want to go to Scranton. I just want to. And it was so much fun. It was great. But I think of The Office.
Are there any landmarks or anything in Scranton that they use in The Office?
Well, yeah. There's a Cooper Seafood where we ate. There's Poor Richard's, the bar. That's really there. That sign, Welcome to Scranton, which was on like when you drive in, they put it in the mall because people were stopping and backing up traffic on the road.
That's great. So there were a few.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then the mall, there's tons of office gear. Yeah, there was enough. And then they had a little hill we went snow skiing on. It was great fun. But I think of The Office, and I think of Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's a little bitty baby. He played Stevie Ray Vaughan in his diapers. He just watched it incessantly, couldn't do it. And I think of Smile. And there's a few other things, but like that was a moment where he just loved that. That's my favorite song. That's my favorite song. And
when he was a kid, right?
When he was a kid, he was like, I don't know, if we've been 8 or 9 or
because
whatever.
When I met him, he was like, "Smile was one of my favorite songs when I was growing up." I was like, "Oh, what's your favorite song now?" He was like, "Shake It Like the Fries," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't write that, but yeah, okay." If you move past Smile, he said something like that.
Well, our other song that I think about too is the Post Malone Ozzy Osbourne song. So that wasn't Smile.
Nice.
Which was a great one.
Yes.
No, anyway, so Smile was big. That's
incredible.
That was one of those songs. If it wasn't the biggest song in the world, I sure did. It felt like it at the time. It felt like it for a long time. It felt like it for 2 years. Yeah. That was one of the two songs you've written that made me jealous.
It was so big, it ruined his career. He hasn't had another one since.
Started your career ruined Crackers?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah,
so my friend Danny Wilde wrote the Friends theme, the Rembrandts.
Oh, wow.
And he said, "Oh yeah, it made us both $1 million and ruined our career because all the cool college kids that used to want to come see them and hear That's Just the Way It Is, Baby, or whatever it is." Yeah, and so they kind of, I think they're actually back to people. I hear them in the grocery store all the time now. But he said for a minute it ruined their live. Like people wouldn't come see them live because they're like, they're pop culture Friends thing, and they're
wild,
cool little hip audience.
I won't be there for you. Yeah.
Ta-da!
Ding ding ding.
And so you wrote that with Cracker and Blair Daly.
Blair Daly, yeah, just the three of us, yeah. And then we had there was another guy who I've never met who actually came up with the little piano loop. It was just like ba-da-na, da-na. But this is Nashville. Write a word, get a third. So he's another writer on it as well. So yeah, now everyone starts off with loops and riffs, but I was kind of new to writing. But it was just, we were strumming on acoustic guitars all weekend. It was great to hear this little piano thing. Yeah, and Smile just like fell out.
It's not really right about that. There's a piano player named Randy McCormick. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but that's the story I heard, and I played on some stuff with Randy. He's amazing keyboard player. But he played, and he was in the studio, and they were doing a Bob Seger record, and it was old time rock and roll, and they said just play an intro to start the song. And then we'll dead start singing. And he went dun 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 dun.
He just wrote it.
Dun 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 dun. Not a songwriter. Didn't get songwriting credit. None of that. Just like I don't get any money for the Proceed to Party shirts with the red Solo Cup.
Everywhere, yeah.
It's just
that's an iconic.
That's an iconic riff,
yeah.
And he just played that. That's the story that I heard, and he's that good for sure.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, so he should get a piece of that.
He should, yeah.
He should actually get more money than whoever wrote the lyrics.
Yeah, it's more iconic than Smile. Yeah.
No, I mean it's pretty. I mean, Smile is big. Let's not try to be Bob Seger, all right? Calm yourself. No, it's good because we've never had like some things that crossed over culturally, but that was really big. All formats, or it seemed like it was. I heard it on every station.
No, and you know the story. I mean, everywhere I went for probably 2 years, people would say, "Oh, JT writes country songs," and all over the country, people would say, "Oh, did you write Red Solo Cup?" People that probably weren't country fans that knew the song.
Yeah, but it didn't do that crazy thing at radio. Red Solo Cup didn't do that. Smile did. I felt like I heard Smile on every kind of station. If they had rap stations back then, it would have been on that. But it was like AC, pop, country, even rock stations.
Yeah, we've been trying to do it ever since. I've written Happy, I've written Frown, I've written Dimples. Yeah,
cry, laugh,
anything.
One word titles.
Yeah,
all over. Now, just Somewhere With You is another one too. That's
yes. So yeah, to any songwriters out there listening, and Brad will tell you, one reason I think I've been a success in Nashville is because, of course, I tried to trace trends, but that didn't work. So just kind of being myself. When Shane McAnally and I wrote Somewhere With You, everyone said, "Oh, this isn't a country song. It's got the fast singing in it." And country songs are like, "Just breathe," or "I hope you dance." And we weren't trying to do anything different. We were just, spilling our broken hearts out, And then Kenny Chesney decided to put it out, and everyone just got out of his way. And
I mean, we all write good songs every day. You don't really know when the great one just kind of happens.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about that song, but that was when I heard on the radio. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have written that song.
It shows you how smart Kenny Chesney was, because I don't know him personally. I mean, I've met him now, but apparently he just said, I need something different that I haven't done before. And so it was different. Everyone passed on that song. That song was passed around more than a vape pen at a Morgan Wallen after show, and it landed in Kenny Chesney's hand. Thank you
for everything. That's good. And Kenny is great. We talked yesterday. We were on a little show, and
you talked with Kenny Chesney yesterday?
No. But we talked about Kenny. I've known Kenny a long time, but Kenny and Tim and Blake Shelton, those guys are great at reinventing themselves within the framework. Still, I mean, it's not an accident to stay on the top of the charts for 2 decades. It is hard. Yeah. People have no idea. It's too hard for me it makes my head hurt to even think about trying to be one of those guys. Yeah, I mean, you've had a bunch of hit songs. I don't want to go over all over your songs, but those 2 songs were in effect. That's the only ones I actually want to talk about.
That's good. That's good. That's fun. I'll take it.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm super flattered.
I don't want to. It's just the songwriting thing. I mean, we do and we talk about that all the time. But those 2, especially "Smile," is always going to be special to me just because of Sage. And then sometimes
in the book, Party Like a Rock Star, there's so many funny stories with Cracker because he hadn't had a record out in 5 years. I knew he was talented. He also wrote All Summer Long with Kid Rock, but his record company wasn't calling him back. But I just knew if we had the right song, something could happen. I'd never had a hit before. I'd never written with anyone famous before. So a couple of years went by of me writing with him, trying to help him get a record out in areas I didn't know what I was doing, taking him to New York to write with other people. So there's just great, colorful stories in the book about me saying, come on, let's go. I mean, he's obviously a very smart guy, but it was just funny traveling around with him.
Was the uncle?
What uncle? Oh no, his brother, Uncle Mike.
Uncle Mike, yes. I don't know Uncle Mike, but his brother his
brother's incredible.
Just texting you, I want to hang out with him.
Yeah, definitely.
They're funny. I mean, Cracker is so Detroit. Like if you look up Detroit,
he and his brother are like you and your brother. When you're with both of them, it's nonstop one-liners and
sarcasm. You can feel it. But after this is all after you wrote "Smile," right? You're trying to recreate it when you took him all those places.
Yes, because "Smile," like no one called us back. It was just like dead in the water, and it's like I knew in my heart and soul this was a hit song. But like his record company, this is how I remember it. His record company wasn't calling, no one was doing anything. But luckily, Cracker's very smart. Rob Cavallo, who produced Green Day, Alanis Morissette, all the Goo Goo Dolls record. He had just done a giant Dave Matthews record, and he had done the latest Kid Rock record, All Summer Long, and all these things. And Cracker started talking to Rob Cavallo and sent him some songs. And Rob was like, "Oh, I'll produce the song Smile," and that really got the train going. So
yeah, it's hard to pick out exactly what it is about something like that that's so amazing and magnetic. But it was. So your dad, your real dad, Jay
Thomas.
By the way, have both of your fathers died? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so when Jay died, that was first, right?
No, my dad, Larry, passed away first. Yeah.
Okay. So when was that?
Probably because it's funny how the time goes by, at least 15 years or so. Okay. Yeah. And he had the best life. He scored a touchdown in the Rose Bowl. He started ESPN in Michigan and then the Discovery Channel. I didn't know at the time, because all the car companies were there, the advertising was awesome because they all needed car commercials. And when my dad worked for the Discovery Channel, I mean, he flew to, Australia for the Eco Challenge. He would take, snowmobiles down into glaciers in Antarctica and eat, lobster and champagne. And he had me, it's like, I mean, he had a great, great life.
He had everything.
Yeah, he had everything.
He really had everything.
So
no, it really sounds like they
life,
were, I really, as I was reading your book, respect.
And he was much older. I mean, he wasn't an old man, but he was older. I mean, Jay was definitely, gone too soon. I'm sure in heaven they're like, can we send Jay Thomas back? He's a little too loud. Yeah. He's making fun of Elvis and Michael Jackson right now.
You're like,
Michael, you thought you were the only white woman that died that day, but Farrah Fawcett died too. One of his.
It never ends.
Yeah, go ahead.
It never ends. So yeah, your adopted father, man, he had I really respected reading that the book that they were like such an athletic family, and yet they were like, yeah, man, be an MTV kid.
Yeah,
I think that's cool because it's hard to not say, hey, no, this family, here's what we do. We work out, we play football,
And it wasn't just.
Of course, you weren't going to make much of a linebacker, right?
What's that?
You weren't going to make much of a linebacker.
Yeah, no.
I'm just kidding, right? Yeah. Maybe they just saw that early.
And it wasn't just like, you can have a band in the basement. It was like, hey, we won the Battle of the Bands, and and as a kid, I'm not even thinking they have to skip work. I'm just like, we're going to do this. So there were 3 or 4 high schools in Michigan, since we won the high school talent show, that we could go to and play in their packed gymnasiums. Like, we were going on tour, and I was like, no one else's parents would take us.
And you snuck out and played the first one, right? Or something?
Yeah, because I was grounded because I had bad grades.
And they still took you to the next one. That's amazing.
So I was like, listen, no one's parents will take us, and we can play at these 4 high schools. Someone's got to take us. And my dad was like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. Load up the car. And as a kid, I'm like, oh, here we go. But That's amazing. You're a parent. It's like, hey, you got to skip a day of work. Yeah, when you look back on it, it's unbelievable.
There's some grace to be had. They're pretty amazing dudes. And then how long ago did Jay die?
It's been about 5 or 6 years. Yeah, gone too soon. Yeah.
Yeah. So how old was he?
Well, similar to me, he lied about his age, so I don't know exactly. He was must have been 65 or something. You can look it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I feel like right now when I leave here, I could just pick up my phone and call Jay, like, oh, he's down in New Orleans. We had a house down there. He had such a big personality that it like doesn't even seem like he's gone. It's very surreal. I'm not sure what surreal means, but I think it means that.
Yeah, I think it means that too. Yeah. That's
or I'll flip the radio and like he had a show on XM and he filled in for Howard Stern every Friday. So I'll just turn on the radio and I'm like, oh, there's Jay talking about something. Or I'll flip through the channels on any given night and I'm like, oh, here's Jay on the Golden Girls. It's like, it's wild.
Yeah. And was it Letterman that loved him so much? It had him on every
Christmas. He would throw the football at the meatball on the Christmas tree and knock it off. Yeah, the meatball.
Meatball, like it's Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Made out of meat.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. So I have a question I ask everybody. It's a two-part question. And the question is, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And the second part is, what's the best thing that came out of that?
I know the best thing that came. Okay. So this is tough because I've had a lot of, family members that have passed away. So you would think I should just say the worst thing that ever happened to me was my brother passing away. But I think the worst thing that ever happened to me was my dad, Larry Harding, passing away. You want to talk about denial. So he had prostate cancer, but he was completely normal up to when he passed away. So we talk about denial. He's like, hey, I went to the doctor. They said maybe I have like 6 months to live. It was like, well, that's impossible. Anyway, I'll see you next weekend or whatever. So my dad passing away, because I'd never experienced anything like that. I mean, talk about denial. I just like, it's impossible that he's going to pass away. He'll get better. So when he passed away, I would say that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. You just cannot, it's an unacceptable reality. You just can't believe that he died. But the best thing that came out of that was now when I know someone who's going through that, then unfortunately my mom passed away years later. I knew to be home all the time because it was real. And then when Jay passed away, I told and I always say, hey, I'm not trying to be a bummer. Anything could happen. But your dad is sick and you've got to come home. And my younger brother's like, oh, my boss is giving me a hard time. I said, dude, tell your boss to find someone else. You've got to come home right now. So they were home every day the last 3 weeks that Jay was left. So the best thing to come out of it is that I get to tell people now, if you're going through this, spend time with your parents. I don't remember who I was supposed to write with for that entire 3 months that my mom was going to pass away. But I remember every second, with her, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is a great answer because I will tell you that is one of the big differences that I would say when someone says, what's the biggest difference? And and I say that I run to the fire instead of running away from the fire now.
Oh, that's great.
And that is,
you make my songs better. You make my stories better.
No, right.
You even make my jokes better.
No, but that is by the way, I mean, the child death is different than a parent death, no matter what age you are. And I have learned that it doesn't matter whether you lost a child as an infant or you were 80 and they were 60. There is something unnatural about that thing going on. But because of that, I have been to every funeral that Tampa, Florida has had that I knew somebody going on for the last 2.5 years. I go to the funeral. My best friend's mom died from Tampa, went to the funeral. Our high school coach died, I went to the funeral. And I love, first of all, I have a different perspective on death.
He puts the fun in funeral.
I do. I put the fun in funeral. And we'll, Brett and I will sing at it. It's just something that I would tend to not I would just not be there. It's like, well, I just ignore that and it'll go away. There was one of my grandparents.
Or it's too far. Or I didn't know him well enough or whatever.
I have to work. We're producing a record. I missed my grandfather's funeral. I'm like, oh, what a dick. That's terrible. Yeah. And I hate that about myself. I would never do that again. And I will never do that again. I show up now when I wouldn't have before. So I love that answer because that's something we don't think about.
Well, it's such a great question. No one's really ever asked me. It's the silver lining. And a little side note. So Jay would be in the living room and we'd be playing video games. And I would say, okay, listen, I went and got the Dr. Pepper. You got to go get the Doritos because I'm not getting stuck in the living room. Oh, come on, you go get it. So you'd walk in. Hey, did I ever tell you about when I told Howard Stern what a loudmouth fool he was? Yeah, you told me. And I'd go in the fridge and you'd walk by really quick. How about the time I told Letterman he was an idiot? Yeah, you told me. So we would get trapped because we'd heard all the stories. So it was funny. We were all home, but we were also escaping. Yeah.
You're still the kids, right? Yeah, and by the way, kids who make fun of their parents, that's just how it works. I mean, my boys, they just, like I was telling you earlier, they just told me there's some things Dad, stop telling the waitress. I didn't like it very much when your plate's clean.
Totally.
It's like the Progressive commercial.
And if we'd say that, Jay would say, you're in a bad mood.
No, I just realized it's like I make fun of my parents. They deserved it. Kids make fun of me. I deserve it. And their kids are going to make fun of them.
And also not only telling people, when I knew that Jay was was not doing well. He had some sort of throat cancer. I hate even saying the word, but I think, we live in a time where medicine has come so far that people can be really helped. But I was like, I know Jay's sick. I'm gonna skip all my rights. I'll go there. So he had some sort of medicine that he was taking in his arm intravenously. And he said, hey, I got to take the medicine. Can you go downstairs and get me a funnel? And I go, okay, great. So I'm downstairs rifling through the kitchen, a funnel. Like what he meant was like the glass thing that you pour the pancake batter in or whatever. I for some reason, I didn't know what he meant by a funnel. So like, I'm just like looking at everything and I found some like little turkey basters and I run up because the intravenous thing, I don't want to be too graphic. It was kind of like dripping or something. I came up and I'm like this. He goes, no, a funnel. So I run back down and I get him a silver bowl and I bring it back up. The funnel to me, like, it's like, yeah. So I come up and he's like, all right, let's just try it. Let's try it. Pour the medicine in here and try to use the bowl to pour it in my intravenous thing. And he wasn't like lying on his bed dying. He was still active, but this was the medicine he had to take. I pour the thing in the intravenous thing and somehow it backs up and it just like a rocket ship going off. It just, or like oil well, it just goes, psh, and this like blue-green medicine sprays all over us, like yelling. And he's sitting there with his hand.
Killed me.
He's sitting there with his hand over his face. He's dripping like a bad sitcom. And he said, do you know who Florence Nightingale was? I said, the very first nurse? He said, yep. You remind me of her brother. I said, was he a doctor? And he said, no, he was a failed auto mechanic. So
I
still like that.
You were just like one-liner after one-liner.
Exactly.
Yeah, getting memories.
Oh.
So like the last thing I kind of wanted to I don't even like, it's not loaded about it, but what do you think is going to happen to the professional songwriter? Ooh, I know we're both songwriters. What do you think the future of that is? I don't know if what are the careers that we have had and, we're having. Is that going to be there in 10 years?
I do not know. For anyone starting out right now, like people have been talking about.
Go to college.
Yeah, people have been saying radio is going to go away. I'm like, what are you talking about? Radio is not going to go away, but certainly the CD went away. Certainly MTV went away. So it's all about streaming. So I can only hope that the people that are making incredible amounts of money off streaming recognize that the songs are what keep it going. And they just have to figure out a way to pay everybody. Listen, I've done great. You've done great. But for the songwriters coming up, songwriting is a real job. It's not like sitting in the basement smoking a bong trying to rhyme, Paul Revere. It's a real job. The world is always going to need hit songs. I mean, you can't imagine. Try to imagine the movie Jaws without the dun-dun. You can't. Try to imagine your favorite football team running out on the field and there's not a song playing. Or the song like Happy Birthday. Someone sat down and wrote that. I mean, I know those are old songs, but we're talking about the future of songs. It's a real job. And if you want new songs that touch your life, like your kids listen to Morgan Wallen, like the songwriting will disappear if someone doesn't get paid for that. And by the way, I don't want to be paid for the songs that I've written that nobody likes. That's a whole different thing. But for people,
I mean, I do, but I don't expect to.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to, but I don't expect to.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Someone told me that, and you might have more. I don't look it up, but the songs I've written have streamed over 1 billion times. I didn't know that. So if someone is stuck in traffic jamming one of my tunes or throwing a Frisbee on the beach, or, sitting in a car and they're nervous about a first kiss and they're playing Smile, I expect to be paid for that. So the world is always going to need hit songs. So I know that. So
and we're going to miss, and we're currently missing some great songwriters because it's not it won't in the future be a viable source of income. We're going to miss some great poets like Tom Douglas that are smart enough to do something else. You're not going to probably miss me because that's the only thing I can do. I'm not qualified to do anything else. I'm going to guess you're not either, although you could actually.
It's such a simple question with not an easy answer, but I know the world will always need hit songs. And we're going to need songwriters to write them. So they just have to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's for another generation, but I always like to get everyone's take on it because my fear is not that the world won't continue to spin. By the way, if we just had to listen to old songs forever and no one ever wrote a song, we'd live. There's so much content out now that I think we could use less content. Holy cow. I can't keep up with what's going on. But someone wrote those songs. Someone are going to write the next songs. And at some point, if it's not a viable way to make a living, we're going to have 10 years without a song that made somebody laugh or cry or help them through a bad night or a breakup or whatever it was. And I don't think we'll understand that we missed it until it's skipped a whole generation.
Totally. And not everyone can live off the old songs, because I hear songs now, I'm like, what are they listening to? And it just seems like this wild song, like Take It Easy by the Eagles isn't going to satisfy a 9th grader right now that's listening to something like totally wild and cool that doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, screw them.
Don Henley, stay away from her.
Take It Easy should take care of everything. The Eagles covered it all. They're perfect.
Exactly.
The Eagles are perfect. Don't ever say they're not. Just kidding. You're amazing. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
I love you, man.
Yes, awesome.
Party Like a Rock Star.
Party Like a Rock Star, available wherever books are sold. The audio version's out. I'm super proud of it. And I talk about all the hit songs I've written. All of them I've co-written. I talk about the co-writers, how we came up with the titles, how we got it to these stars, how songs were passed around and said no to. So it's really great. It's all mixed up.
That's
mixed
awesome.
in.
Thanks for being honest today.
All right.
Appreciate you. Love you, brother.
Yes. It's great. Woo!
Fantastic. Hell yes.
Yeah. That was great.
That was great, man.
I love the questions that are unexpected. Yeah.